In this video, I'm going to show you how I turned this plain looking pine tree into this winter pine tree with snow using the same stamps, and will create a lovely winter scene. Hi, this is Anna from Crafty Anna Studio. Welcome back to my channel where I post paper crafting and card making tutorials. The stamp set I'll be using today is the seasonal tree stamp set from Hero Arts, which has about 4 layering stamps to create a pine tree. But the technique I will show you today can be applied to any color layering stamp sets you may have. This color layering tree has 4 layers. You have the first layer, which is the overall layer for the leaves. Then you have the detailed layer. Then the third are the branches. And the fourth layer are ornaments or lights which you can add to make it a Christmas tree. The technique I'm going to show you today is an emboss-resist technique. But before I get into that, I'm going to stamp this out as it was meant to be. I'll be using a MISTI or a stamp positioning tool. I place the cardstock onto the stamp positioner, and then I take the first layer, which is the stamp that stamps out the leaves or pine needles. I position the stamp onto the cardstock, close the door of my MISTI to pick up the stamp, and for the first layer, I'll be using this Byzantine green, which is a reactive glitz ink. It's called a reactive glitz because it has a little bit of shimmer in it. I ink up the stamp generously with this ink, close the door of my MISTI, give it a good press, and there you have the first layer. The second layer is the detailed layer. I take it out and I'll place it right on top the first layer, close the door of my MISTI, and this time I'm using a darker ink. This is the color moss. I ink it up generously, close the door of my MISTI, give it a good press, and that would be the second layer. The third layer are the branches. I place it on top of the other 2 layers, line it up, then ink it up generously with brown ink. I am using Cocoa from Hero Arts. Close the door of my stamp positioning tool, give it a good press, and it's done. I won't stamp out the last layer because I want to show that based on the 3 stamps that I used for this, that I can make this snow-filled tree using the emboss-resist technique. But first, I need to figure out where I'm going to place the tree in relation to the window. So I take a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 cardstock panel. I'll place one of the stamps from the stamp set and position it so that there's some space at the top for the star. Then I'll take this urban window die from Hero Arts and I'll put it on top of the stamp to see if the image will show through the window. The trick with this technique is that you have to start with a stamp that you want to appear on the topmost part of the image. So in this case, I'll be using the detailed stamp in the stamp set to mimic the snow. So the detailed stamp will be the topmost layer, then the second layer will be the overall tree, and then the last layer will be the branches, and then we'll ink blend all around. So I'm going to take the detailed stamp and I'm going to put it on top of the other stamp just to get the placement. I'll close the door of my MISTI to pick up the stamp and then I'll remove the other stamp. And now I have perfect placement. I'm going to heat emboss this layer, so I'm going to ink it up generously with Versamark ink, which is a sticky ink. Prep the cardstock with anti-static powder. Close the door of the stamp positioning tool and press down to transfer the ink. Then I will sprinkle it generously with white embossing powder. Tap off the excess and then heat up the embossing powder with a preheated heat tool until it's shiny and melted. This then will be the layer of snow that will be on the tree. Next, I will place the cardstock back onto the stamp positioning tool, and then I'm going to take the other layering stamp and position it right on top of the embossed area. After positioning it as best I could, I'll close the door of the MISTI to pick up the stamp. Then I will ink up this stamp using the Byzantine green Reactive Glitz ink. After inking it up, I'm going to close it on the image, and here you can see that it looks like it may not have stamped properly, but it's just the embossed areas that are resisting the ink. I'm going to stamp one more time just to get a good impression, and then I feel that it needed more depth. So I'm going to add a darker ink on the middle. And for this, I'll be using the moss ink, and I'm only going to concentrate the inking in the middle of the stamp. The next step is where the magic happens. I get a microfiber cloth and I spray it a little bit with water just to make sure that it's damp and not wet, just a little damp. And then I'm going to take it to the image and I'm going to gently wipe off the ink that's sitting on top of the embossed areas. I'm wiping it off towards the inner part because I don't want to smear the ink on the outer area of the tree. For the next step, I wipe off the stamp and now I'm going to use Versamark ink because I'm going to heat emboss this with clear embossing powder to lock in the color. But first, I will prep it once again with anti-static powder, push down, and transfer the sticky ink onto the surface. Sprinkle it generously with clear embossing powder, tap off the excess, and then heat set it. Heat setting it with clear embossing powder locks in the color, and now I can stamp on top of it. I remove the stamp and now I will replace it with a tree trunk and branches. I place it on top of the image, close the door of the MISTI to pick up the stamp, ink it up with cocoa ink, close the door to the MISTI to transfer the ink. Then once again, I will take the microfiber cloth, spritz it with a little bit of water, and then take it to the image and gently wipe off the brown ink that's sitting on top of the white and green embossed areas. You can see here how the trunk is now behind the leaves and the snow. So before we proceed to ink blend the background, the one final step is to lock in the brown color. And once again, I will ink it up with Versamark ink, stamp it down to transfer the ink, and then heat emboss it using clear embossing powder. As you can see here, the brown ink was a little difficult to remove, so I'm going to heat emboss the snowy part once again with white embossing powder. Actually, when it's all said and done, this part really didn't matter because once you ink blend the background, it's really not visible, but I still like to do it because I want my snow to be really white. This heat emboss technique really works well for layering stencils, especially those that overlap each other. I would suggest to look into your stash to see which layering stamps you may have that would work best with this technique. To make this tree a little more Christmassy, I'm going to add a star on top. So I'm going to take the star stamp, place it right on top of the tree. Then I'm going to heat emboss this using silver embossing powder. Now it's time to ink blend the beautiful Starry Night background. I'm going to use oxide inks for this. So I have Distress Oxide ink in Chipped Sapphire and Black Soot. And with a blending brush, I'm going to start from the outside, working my way in. I will try to avoid the area around the star so that it would look like it's shining once I'm finished ink blending the background. With just two distress oxide colors, you will see how to create a beautiful night sky full of stars. I will pause right here to wipe off the excess ink that's sitting on top of the white heat embossed area. Again, I will sweep it, this time I will sweep it outwards. And then I will continue ink blending. The card I'm making can be both a holiday card, or if you just change up the sentiment, it can actually be a winter card. Now, coming from a country that does not have winter, do people actually give out winter cards? Please let me know in the comments below what winter cards are used for. Is it usually if somebody's having a winter birthday, or is it just a general how are you card? I would really like to know because I love making winter cards, but I usually just think of it as holiday cards. Back to the card. After ink blending with the chipped sapphire, I'm bringing in now the black soot and I'm ink blending it only on the outer part of the panel. This will emphasize the shining star on top of the tree. Then I will bring back the chipped sapphire and I will ink blend it so that the transition areas between the black and the blue ink is more seamless. Then I will take the damp cloth and wipe off the ink that sits on top of the white embossed areas. So the first step in creating a starry night is I'm going to lightly spritz the panel with water. Then I'm going to take a paper towel, place it on top to absorb all the water. And there you have it, a little starry night. On a separate 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 cardstock panel, I'm going to die cut the window. If you don't have this particular die, you can actually create a window on your own if you have a rectangular nesting die. You can actually use can die cut four rectangles next to each other and one on top of each other to create the window openings. Here I am, I'm removing the leaves from the window with detailed scissors, as this will just be very distracting and it doesn't really fit in with the theme of my card. I don't have my white acrylic spray with me because while filming this video, I was actually in an Airbnb traveling. So I'm just going to use a white gel pen to draw in the stars. If you're watching my video and you haven't subscribed yet, I would truly appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. I have more cards that I will be uploading on my channel, and some of them will be holiday cards as well. So if you are in the holiday card making mood, you can subscribe and click the notification bell so you'll know when I upload my video. Thank you so much. I'm adding a generous amount of glue to the back of the frame, and I'm going to adhere a piece of acetate. Then I will add some foam tape as well. This will look like the acetate will mimic glass and the foam tape will bring more depth to the design. Then I will stamp out Season's greeting on a piece of cardstock, heat emboss it with clear embossing powder, and then I will fussy cut it to add to the card later on. Now that I have everything ready, it's time to assemble the card. I have here a side folding note card, and I'm going to add a generous amount of glue to the back, adhere it on top of the note card, remove the backing from the foam tape, then using the edge of the card panel, I will lay down the window and then add the greeting. And now that's all done. This is my Christmas winter card. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I have them linked in the description below. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial. Have a wonderful and crafty day. Till next time, bye!